Business leader. I'm Sean Jordan, your trainer for this session, and I'm going to show you how to register your business in SAM.gov. If you have incorporated in your business plans or want to create strategic plans to generate revenue for your business through government grants and contracts, registering your business in SAM.gov is the first step to accomplishing that goal. So during our time today, I'm going to share some tips and some things to avoid that hopefully will help you along your application process. So let's get into it. I always like to start with covering our disclaimers. You should see on your screen our customer due diligence, and I'm not going to read that word for word, but I would like to call out that there are no express or implied warranties when working with this type of service and consulting firm. I recommend that the customer you understand and agree that the assistance is provided on an as-is basis and that you shall conduct your own due diligence to determine the suitability and appropriateness of the consulting and assistance for yourself and your business, and that you shall take reasonable considerations for current and future economic conditions that may impact your contract negotiations and pricing structures that may impact your overall business success. A little bit of background about me. I have been in this industry for 15 years, supporting businesses across the growth life cycle from entrepreneurship all the way through enterprise companies that operate globally. The strategic work that I provide is connected to helping businesses generate revenue. Business is closely tied to how they plan to execute to establish customer bases and their revenue cycles and how that money comes into the business. So that may look like helping to create revenue, enablement strategies and frameworks, proposal management operations, and setting up RFP strategies that integrate into your other sales strategies. My experience also spans creating sales strategies and sales cycles and all of the training and professional development programs that would be tied to helping people execute on all of those plans and strategies that the business uses to operate and again to generate funds. So in that work, I have successfully helped these businesses execute well over thousands of deliverables, and that could be in the form of a formal proposal, a quote, review and completion of reps and certs, or first pass review on contracts, anything that would be asked of in the procurement process to help the funder or the funding company, the purchaser, to validate a business in the process of B2B procurement and B2G procurement. Over this time, I have successfully helped these businesses collectively generate billions of dollars in revenue, and that is across various markets. So let's get into why we are all here, okay? Getting your business registered into SAM.gov is about understanding their process and what they're asking you to complete. A little bit of background about SAM.gov, if you don't know, in April of 2022, The federal government phased out the use of the DUNS number as a unique identifier for businesses in their system. The DUNS number and numbering system still exists. It is a privately owned company that is the equivalent to our personal credit reporting bureaus like Experian and Equifax. The DUNS numbering system tracks your business credit. So that still exists. You can still get that 9-digit number for your business. It is just no longer associated with your application for your SAM registration. Instead, they implemented their own version, which is called the Unique Entity Identifier, a UEI, which is now the primary means of how the government identifies entities that are registered in the federal awards government wide system, which is SAM.gov. Okay, so in addition to that, there's a second phase to the application process to request your cage code. The cage code is a historic 6-digit code, I believe it is, that they also use to identify you in their system. We'll talk a little more about that here soon. Need to actually get started. If you notice, this screenshot is going to show you a 1, 2, 3 step process of the system. From beginning to end, they are going to guide you through. I'm going to share some tips with you that I think helps the process move along faster. First and foremost, your business must be registered and formed as a corporation with a state agency. So that means you have to have it registered as an LLC, S Corp, or C Corp, something to that effect. And then based on that information, as you see here in the screenshot again, the system is going to attempt to validate your entity solely based on the information that you put in the system. So it's also going to ask you to upload 2 forms of verification that the system will automatically read to validate your business as a legal entity to do business in the United States and with the federal government. The first form of validation the system will attempt is to match your business name that is formed, your formed corporation, match it with an IRS, EIN, or a TIN number, which you can also get for free. I'll put the link that's here in the chat as well. And it will look for the exact business name that you registered with the IRS that you inputted into the system. So it's really important for you to type your name. It might sound trivial, but the system verifies every character, every word with this documentation that you're going to upload. So type it just as you register the name, and the name has to match the both forms of documentation that the system will ask you to upload. The second form of documentation is going to be the state registration form that you get when you register your business as that corporation. Your state agency will provide you with a certificate. The SAM.gov is going to ask you to upload that certificate and the proof of your IRS EIN, which is typically a PDF document that you can download from the IRS's site when you get your EIN assigned. So hopefully you have that PDF available. If you don't have your PDF and for whatever reason you don't have your state registration, those are the absolute 2 best forms of documentation to upload to validate your entity. However, they will accept other forms of documentation. And there's a link in the system that you can click on that I guide you through during a live demo that will give you a full list of all of the documentation that you can submit for the purposes of validation. Okay. Now, as a part of this, please be mindful of registration processing times. And this can get tricky because depending on the type of documentation that you have submitted, if the system is able to validate your entity, it'll do an automatic attempt. If it's able to validate based on the documentation, then it'll pass you through those steps. If not, it can cause delays in your registration. The typical registration process timeline could range can range anywhere from a few weeks to several months. And the system goes through several validation points, again, which can drastically impact your ability to bid. In the case of you are searching while you're filling out your application, or you've already started searching and you found an opportunity that you're interested in and very qualified for, but you haven't yet finalized and submitted your SAM registration, you risk not being able to apply or submit for that funding opportunity because you don't have the UEI at minimum, which is now a requirement across all federal funding types. So whether it is a federal grant or a federal contract, federal contracts are posted in sam.gov, federal grants are posted in grants.gov, and some other agency-owned sites. They all require a UEI for the business that wants to submit an application and or proposal. So that's why it's important to have this step completed before you really start to execute on any type of revenue strategy that's tied to applying for government grants and pursuing government contracts. Other reasons for peak times can come from contract renewals from some of the most popular GSAs and MSAs. They are highly lucrative contract vehicles that the big, larger known prime contractors maintain as incumbents. A lot of small businesses maintain a big chunk of their revenue from these types of contracts. And so when they go up for renewal, it's a really big deal in the industry across the board, just because of all the activity that it takes to renew these large, high volume contracts that are like $1 billion contracts and multi-award with a lot of different businesses on a contract vehicle. And then all of the ordering that takes place as a result of that activity creates a lot of activity in sam.gov, because there's a lot of records updating, a lot of records pulling, a lot of other businesses that are updating and renewing their sam.gov profiles so that they remain compliant and competitive. There's no specific rhyme or reason or timing that you can put a pin in with regards to processing times, but these are just some things to be mindful of if you start to feel like you haven't heard back, or it just seems to be taking longer than a few weeks. Typically, it only takes about 7 to 14 days to get your UEI, because that is an automatic validation based off the documentation. When you get to the point of, which is the second stage of the registration process, when you get to the point of applying for your cage code, that process a lot longer. The first part to get your UEI will only take you about 15-20 minutes tops to complete the initial application, and they will assign you a UEI the same day if they can validate your entity. Once you complete that step, the second step is a longer process where you have to read FAR code and complete a much longer application to receive your cage code. And then that part goes through a more stringent validation process, and which is what takes it a little bit longer. In the event that they are unable to validate the information that you have typed in and uploaded and provided against that information and the information that is provided to the IRS. They will send you an email. They will communicate with you. The SAM.gov system will attempt to talk to the IRS's system and validate your EIN or TIN number as a part of the first step in this process. If everything matches up in both systems, you'll be moved to the next step. You'll get your UEI. If this is one of those areas where I do see people get a bounce back or response back. If they aren't able to validate for some reason, like for instance, maybe you just applied for your EIN on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday you are trying to apply for your UEI in SIM.gov. They won't be able to validate it. It takes 9 days for the IRS's system to refresh all new EIN and TIN requests and show up in the system. So just keep that in mind. If you get a validation error there, in any event, if you get a validation error or on any of the information provided, SAM.gov will send you an email. Be sure you are checking your email against the email that you use to sign up for your account in SAM.gov. That may sound trivial, but it's easy to forget which email you use if, like most of us, you're managing multiple emails in your day. Because they will send you an email, they will explain what information they was not able to validate, and then they will also give you instructions on how to correct the problem, and they'll also give you contact information if you want to reach out to them for further clarification. They're very responsive. However, they will only give you about 3 days to respond, so it will always be a time-sensitive response. So be mindful when you get those emails from SAM.gov about your registration to please make sure you're checking those to make sure that you're passing every validation point and they're not asking you for any information. If they ask you for information and you don't respond within the time allotted, they will put your application into an inactive status, and then after several weeks, they will deactivate the active status, and you essentially just have to start from scratch from the beginning. There's really no harm, no foul. You're just kind of starting over, and it's your time that's kind of on the line when you do that. All right. So, given the fact that you have made it all the way through the validation steps, you have been assigned the UEI code, which is a really long alphanumeric, it's probably like 12 digits, 11, 12-digit number. You'll know when you get it. And you have your cage code. The next steps is to take advantage of some of the most popular and resourceful sites for entrepreneurs and small business owners, particularly if you're just starting out in government grants and contracts. There's a plethora of other sites and opportunities and resources out there that help you advance and scale your procurement goals and your revenue goals overall. These are just 4 key areas I think is really critical to getting started and understanding what you should do next. And so one is going to the SBA.gov and signing up, well, not signing up, applying for your minority disadvantaged certification through the SBA. Going to sam.gov and definitely doing some keyword searching and using your NAICS code to search for opportunities you may qualify for. Check out grants.gov for grants that you may qualify for, even as a small business owner, as an individual, as an entrepreneur, if you have a nonprofit, if you have a for-profit. There are all different contract types for different purposes that you may qualify for as well. And then the fourth one I recommend is going to nasa.gov and registering your business in their vendor database. They have an extremely robust small business development program, and it's really something for every business type, no matter what industry you're in, what products or services you provide. But particularly if you are in the engineering, data, and science field, or any type of STEAM field, this is going to help you grow your strategy and scale tremendously. With that, that brings us to the end of the webinar. I look forward to hearing from you. Please feel free to leave a comment, share the webinar, or reach out to me directly. And see you soon in the next class. Have a great day.